Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome to today's Daf Yomi, which is Shekelim Yutes. We begin the Mishnah at the new Perek, which is around 7-8 lines from the top of the Amud. It says the Mishnah, Ma'osh shenimtzu bein hashkelim u'nedava. Yesterday we discussed that there were actually 13 shefaros, shafar-shaped containers, in order to deposit various monies. We had this year's Shekelim, last year's Shekelim. We had money which was intended for purchasing firewood for the Beis Hamikdash, money intended for purchase of birds, various types of birds, the chatas and oila pair, or just a double oila for an adava or a nether. We had donations for levina, etc., etc. What if we find some money on the floor between any of these containers? Which one does it belong to? If we find some money between the container intended for machzas hashekel, that's the shkelim, l'nedava, between that and the one intended for nedava. Nedava, of course, is money that's going to be used for kayetz hamizbeach, to purchase oilos for the mizbeach. So if the money on the floor, we don't know where it belongs to. Says the Mishnah, it depends which one is closer. Karev l'shkelim yipul l'shkelim. If it's closer to the machzas hashekel pushka, goes there. L'nedava, if it's closer to the nedava pushka, yipul nedava, then you put it into the nedava container. Why? We learned this from Egla Rufa, that we always follow karev. Right? You find somebody that was killed on the road, and which city will be responsible for that Egla Rufa to bring the carbon? It's going to be the one closer to the mace. Although the other one might be more populated, and statistically speaking, perhaps the conclusion would be that the murderer, at least we would speculate that there's more chance that the murderer hailed from the larger city. The halacha is we follow the karev. In this case as well, wherever the money is closer to, that's where you attribute it to, and that's where you put it in. So it's carved to the shkelim, it goes to the shkelim, l'nedava, yipul l'nedava, mechza l'mechza. It's exactly halfway between one and the other. Yipul l'nedava, it is put into the nedava pushka, and the reason is because the shofar intended for nedava, its content has a higher level of kedusha. Nedava means completely for an oila, completely burnt in mizbeach, which is higher in standing than the machzas shekel, which is intended for purchase of all types of karbanos tzibur, including chatois, etc., which are not fully burnt in the mizbeach. So when it's closer to one or the other, it goes to the karev. But if it's half and half, it's a suffix, then we'll machmir, and we put into the one which is more kaddish. The Mishnah provides several other examples as well. Ben eitzim l'levina, you find some coins on the floor between the container intended for purchase of firewood and the container intended for purchase of levina. Here again, karev l'eitzim, yipul l'eitzim. If it's closer to the eitzim, it goes there. L'levina, yipul l'levina. What if it's half and half? Mechza l'mechza, it's right in the middle. Yiplu l'levina. We put it into the levina pushka, and the reason is because levina is actually a carbon on the mizbeach as opposed to eitzim, which is merely a hechsher, accessory for the carbon, and therefore levina stands higher. One more example, bein kinin l'goyz l'oila. We have the shofar, in which they put money to purchase kinin. A kan is a pair of birds, chatas and oila pair. And you have goyz l'oila, another pushka containing money intended for purchase of a pair of oila birds. What if there's money right in between? Bein kinin l'goyz l'oila. Karev l'kinin, yiplu l'kinin. Karev l'goyz l'oila, yiplu l'goyz l'oila. Mechza l'mechza, it's right in the middle. Yiplu l'goyz l'oila, and the reason is because goyz l'oila has a higher level of kedusha than kinin. Kinin is a pair of chatas and oil. The chatas is eaten by the kohanim, so it doesn't stand as high as goyz l'oila, which is a pair of oila birds completely burnt on the mizbeach. So the point again is we follow the closest one, but if there's no one closer, then we go lahachmer, we take it to the upper level. Continues the Mishnah. The same halacha applies elsewhere, even in a non-Beis HaMikdash context, ben chulin l'maser sheni. Suppose you have two piles of coins. One is maser sheni money, and one is just plain money, chulin. And you find some coins right in the middle, unidentified. You don't know where it came from. Karav l'chulin, yiplu l'chulin. If it's closer to chulin, it goes there. L'maser sheni. If it's closer to maser sheni, yiplu l'maser sheni. Then you put it there. Mechza l'mechza. It's right in the middle. Yiplu l'maser sheni. Then you put it with the maser sheni bunch, because, of course, maser sheni is kaddish and stands higher than chulin. Zaklal. This is the general formula in these situations. When there's something closer than the other, then we follow that, even if it's lekula. Mechza lemechza. If it's right in the middle, we have a suffix. La'achmer, of course, we go l'chumra. We put it together with the money that has a higher level of kedusha. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. You tell me you find mois between Shekelim and Nedava. Now, keep in mind, we had 13 shefaras, and we assumed they were lined up in a straight line. First one is Shekelim, then you have the Kinan, the Kois Le'oil. Then all at the end, you have 6 shefaras, L'Nedava, containing money to be used for Kaita Mizbeach. How in the world are you going to find coins between the Shekelim, which is at one end of the spectrum, to the Nedava Pushka, which is on the other end? It's like saying Ella. You didn't have to say any other than Ben Shekelim Lekini, meaning the right way to describe the halacha was there's something between Shekelim and Kina, which is the next one. How do you have something between Shekelim and Nedava, which is only on the other side? Rabbi Abban, B'Shem Pinchas, Kimin B'chlayar Hayasuyin. They were situated like a b'chlayar, like a necklace, in a round circle. In which case it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, till you get to 13, which is right next to 1. To complete the circle. So you can find coins between 13, which is Nedava, and 1, which is Machzas HaShek. Continues the Gemara. Mechza l'mechza. Fine. So you figured out the configuration, and you have something lying right in the middle between Nedava and Shekelim. We say, Yiplu l'Nedava. You put it into Nedava Pushka. Why? Wouldn't you think that Machzas HaShekel stands higher? That's Karbonis Sibur. That's Karbonis Chayva. Why do you attribute it to the Nedava? Why do you assume that the Nedava stands higher than Shekelim? Is the Beimim, as some explain, Shema Yiplu l'Shiyore Halishka. Because when you put something in the Shofar for Machzas HaShekel, keep in mind that only a small portion of that will actually be used to purchase Karbonis Sibur. The rest is going to be considered Shiyore Halishka, just the leftovers used to fix up the city, etc. Not even for Karbonis use. Therefore, we prefer the Shofar for Nedava. That's intended exclusively for purchase of Oilos L'Kaita Mizbeach. That's one shot. Why Nedava stands higher than Shekelim is to be, maybe some explained, Mechza l'Mechza Kimishameis. When you find right in the middle, it's as though you have your Machzas HaShekel without an owner. He's ownerless because it's unidentified. It's not attributed to any specific donor. And we know that when we have a Machzas HaShekel, whose owner passed away, that money goes l'Nedava. That's the halacha. Rabbi Yasa, Ad Anat Haman, as Rabbi Yasa says, while I was still in Bavel, before I came to Yisrael, Sham is called Rabbi Yehuda Ashal Shmuel. I overheard Rabbi Yehuda asking Shmuel, Hifrish Shiklo Yomes. One designates a Machzas HaShekel and passes away, Amarle Yiplu Nedava, you take it and you put it into the Nedava Pushka to be used for purchasing of Kayetz HaMizbeach Oilos. And we learned this earlier. The Machzas HaShekel is intended for Kachim Kachim, and whenever we have something left over, something lost, in that context, from the Kachim money, it goes l'Nedava. So basically, that explains the halacha in our Mishnah. We find something in the middle of these two shefaras, Shekelim and Nedava. Why don't you prefer Shekelim? So teres number 1 was because Shekelim sometimes can end up being used for mundane purposes. Therefore, the Nedava Pushka really stands higher. It's exclusively designated for Karbonis. That's number 1. Number 2, when you find the coin right in the middle of the road there, unattributed, unidentified, it says though he has no owner. And the halacha is, in that situation, it goes l'Nedava. So if it's closer to Shekelim, then you have the halacha that Karev supersedes. But it's right in the middle, you have a suffix, then it's considered like moiser, like an ownerless masa shekel, and you put it into the davar. Continues the Gemara with another halacha, slightly related. Asiris ha'efa shaloi. Moiser asiris ha'efa shaloi. Asiris ha'efa is referring to the carbon mincha that the kohen gadol will bring twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. Called minchas chavitin. What if there's leftover money? He designated something for today's mincha, and there's money left over. What do you do with that? Rabbi Yehuda Omar yolichem liyam melech, insert it into the Dead Sea, meaning just get rid of it, don't use it. You can't use it tomorrow, as the Brisker Rav explains, because we know there's a halacha. Whenever we have a obligatory carbon called over shebechoiva eina bo el men achulin, you can only use chulin money for it. For instance, a person has a chiv to bring a chatos, you cannot use maser sheni funds for that. Says the Brisker Rav, here he already designated for today's minchas chavitin. Use it for tomorrow? You can't. Tomorrow, you have to use tomorrow's money. You can't use yesterday's money for tomorrow, to be yotzei tomorrow's obligation. So what do you do with the money? According to Rabbi Yechanan, send it to Yam HaMelech. Rabbi Eliezer Amar, yipul nedava. Put it into the nedava pushka to be used for kayitz hamazbeach. Why? We actually learned this earlier in the Masechta, because according to Rabbi Eliezer, the minchas chavitin is considered like a chatas. And we learned from a pasuk that moisar chatas goes to nedava. Here as well, the extra leftover funds from the Asir Se'efa of the Kohen Gadol, go to Nadava. Okay, getting back to our mission. We have money found between the Shefaras. In one of the cases, we found money between the Kinin and the Goyz Le'oila. Kinin were the pairs, right? The pair of birds, one Chatas, one Oila. And the Goyz Le'oila were exclusively for Oila. Now, if you find some money right in the middle, between the kinin and goes lo'ila, what does the Mishnah say? You put it into the higher kedusha, which is goes lo'ila, because they're completely burnt. Says more kasha. We have some difficulty with that. Can you take a chatas? Meaning, perhaps this money was meant for purchase of a kan, which is one chatas, one oila. And now you're going to say, well, I'm going to be machmir and put it into the goyz le'oila pushka for purchase of oilos. Now this money was intended at least partially for purchase of a chatas. How can you now divert it for an oila? So you're purchasing a chatas and bringing it as an oila. You know that the process of akrava of chatas and oila is different. In one, the hazah of the dam is on top of the mizbeach, the other one on the bottom. You can't just confuse one for the other. You have to do it in a very specific way. V'yesh chatas kreva oila. Says the Gemara, Chizke b'shem b'shimon lakish. He answers like this: Tnai bezinu ala moiser shikr oilas. There's a Tnai bezin. Bezin established a condition into the system, which says that you want to bring money to the Beis Hamikdash. You want to use the services, the in-house services of putting money to the shofar and have them purchase karbanos for you and bring them for you. Well, you meant to know we follow certain rules. The Beis Din established these guidelines. If you have some moisture, some leftover money, in this case, we have lost money, which was found in between the pushkas, and there's some uncertainty as to its origins, you bring it as an oil. So the kedusha initially was applied in this manner, that if there's any confusion, bring it as an oila. So now kasha was answered. How do you bring a chatas as an oila? It's not a chatas. It's been nizgala now, revealed that it was meant for an oila. Okay, that it takes care of the actual coin. How can you use a chatas coin for an oila? The answer is, it's now an oila coin. Fine, but what about the owner of that chatas coin who needs a chatas and hadn't received the chatas? Ha'isha azois, b'mais miskaperes. What about the isha who's a zava, who inserted coins into the kinin shofar to get a chatas for a kapara, for a tahara? It turns out her coins never stayed in that shofar and were diverted to the other one. They got lost and they were taken to the other one for oila use. She never got her chatas. B'mais miskaperes. Omar b'yitzchak t'nai beznu. Hamasapek is akinin, umasapek is apsulois. The Chachamim made a deal, made a Tanai with the bird supplier. He got this huge contract to supply birds the entire year for Hegdish. So he had to be willing to give a little. The Masapik Esakin, the supplier of the birds, who Masapik is a psulois. He would supply for the ones that went ori. Suppose there was some birds which turned out to be a treif, or in this case, there was somebody lost, and there was some confusion, or let's say a bird flew away. In any case, he has to go and throw in a couple of birds to make up for those. So in our case, should money surface between the kinin and the goyz lo'ilo, and the result ends up being that the money ends up in the goyz lo'ilo, and we're not sure whether the isha got kapara, got chatas, we require the supplier to throw in an extra bird, and that we brought as a chatas on account of this uncertainty. This way we know with certainty that the isha had her chatas. Continues the Gemara, Lo tzurcha deloi bein teres la'etzim. The Mishnah stopped right in the middle. The Mishnah began with some examples of monies found between this and that, between the Shekelim and the Dava, between the Eitzim L'Lavoina, between the Kin and Goyz L'Oila. Now there are several more. I actually have 13 Shefaris in the Mishnah. Why didn't the Mishnah express them all, describe all the different types of situations? The Mishnah should have not explained only, meaning the Mishnah should have itemized further. More examples. Bein Kin, there's a case of Bein Kin and L'Eitzim, between those two. Bein L'Voina, L'Kapiris, between this and the other one, the next one. Why didn't the Mishnah go through all of them? The answer is because once we gave some examples, and the Mishnah then concluded with a general klal, which covers everything. V'tanisa b'saifa. Zeh klal, holchan achar karev. We always follow the karev, regardless of whether it's the kula l'chumra, mechza la'achmer. So we know both things. We follow the karev when that applies, and mechza la'mechza when it's la'achmer. When it's mechza la'mechza, then we go la'achmer. So no reason to go over all the different cases once we have that as an established formula. So conclusion, we have the 13 sheifarais, we have monies found in between. We generally follow the karev. Even if it ends up being lekula, we attribute it to the one that's closer by. We learn this from Egla Rufa. When we have an uncertainty, there's a suffix metzal mechza, then we go l'chumra. Some examples of l'chumra is, we follow the nedava as opposed to the Shekelim for two reasons mentioned. We follow goyz le'oila as opposed to the kinim because that's completed for the oila. We follow the lavaina, which is an actual carbon, as opposed to the eitzim, which is only machshirei carbon. Continues the Mishnah with several examples of found items, found monies, found meat. Suppose we found money sitting in front of the animal dealers in Yerushalayim, la'oila maser. It's always presumed to be maser sheni money. Why? You see, on the Yom Tov, all Yisrael would come up la'oila regel and bring along their maser sheni money, which could only be used in Yerushalayim. Now there was such an abundance, so much maser sheni funds, they didn't have an opportunity to spend it all throughout those short days of Yom Tov. So what did they do? Before they left town, they granted it, or they gave it for some sort of a small fee to the inhabitants of Yerushalayim. Now generally, although technically you can use maser sheni money for any type of food, but generally they would use it to purchase a shlamim, a carbon shlamim. So they would give it to the Anshe Yerushalayim, who would use it throughout the year to purchase animals for a shlamim, using this maser sheni money. Therefore, most transactions involving animal dealers in Yerushalayim involve maser sheni money. So money is found in front of those seicher behema always considered maser. Ubar habayis chul. If you find money on harabayis, you follow the roiv money throughout the year, which is chul. Now, although during the Yom Tovim we assume most money in Yerushalayim was maser sheni money, but look, now you found money sitting on harabayis. You don't know when it was dropped. Dropped today, dropped yesterday, dropped on Chanukah, dropped on Sukkot. You don't know if it's been dropped on Yom Tov or throughout the year. So we follow the majority of monies, which is not meiser. So we say it is chul. Ubi Yerushalayim. What if you found money in the streets of Yerushalayim? Now the Gemara explains elsewhere that they would actually sweep those streets on a daily basis in order to keep it free of any tumah. lest a kohen or anybody else was involved in tahara, become tummy. So the streets were swept perfectly clean, in which case, if you find something today, it must have been dropped today. Because had it been dropped yesterday, it wouldn't have been here any longer today. It would have been swept away. So whenever you find it, it was dropped that day. It was shalayim. You find money in your shalayim. If you find it throughout the year, you assume it's chulin. It was dropped today. If you find it on Yom Tov, then you assume it's maser, because most monies during Yom Tov were maser money, brought up by the Yisrael that came up like regel. So what's found on Yom Tov is presumed to have been dropped on Yom Tov. Found today, lost today. And therefore it's maser. So you have three halachas regarding finding money in Shalayim. If you find it on Har HaBayis, you follow Roiv of the year. Roiv, money throughout the year, is not maser money. And on Har HaBayis, there was no sweeping taking place, because the Gemara tells us elsewhere that it was actually built on a slant, and the wind would just blow away anything, any dried up shrutzim, any dust. So there was no need to actually sweep it on a constant daily basis. And therefore anything found today could have been dropped half a year ago. You don't know when it was dropped. So regardless, when you find it, you follow Roiv days, Roiv monies, which is chulin. If you find it from the animal dealers in Shalayim, most transactions involve Maser Sheni money for purchase of shlomim. Therefore, it's presumed to be Maser Sheni. You find it in the streets. Then, whichever day you found it, you follow the halacha of that day. Meaning, if you find it on Yom Tov, on Chol HaMoed, you assume it was dropped today and it's maser money. If you find it throughout the year, then you say it's chul. What if we find meat? Basar shenimtza ba'azor, you find meat sitting in the azor. We assume that they're karbanis, which are meant to be in the azor. But which carbon? Eivarim, if you find them chopped in chunks and in limbs. Oilos, you assume that they're oilos meant for the mizbeach. V'chaticha is chatois, if you find them chopped in smaller sized pieces, prepared for eating, then you assume that it's a chatos, which is eaten by the kehana. That's in the azor. Ubi Yerushalayim zivchei shlomim. If you find bas in Yerushalayim, you assume that it's a shlomim, because, as we explained, most meat eaten in Yerushalayim, even throughout the year, it seems like it's going on the whole year, is considered shlomim. So if you find chopped up basar chaticha is basar in Yerushalayim, it's assumed to be shlomim. Now you can't eat any of these. Why? Because it was hesach hadas, perhaps it became tamei, perhaps it was noiser. You don't know that it's edible. That's muta b'achila. So therefore, zeh v'zeh, either way, this one, that one, to uba tzuras, you have to let it spoil, meaning leave it overnight until it becomes pasal vada with psul noiser, psul lina. V'yeitzi beis hasreifa, and you take and you burn it like a korban shenifsal. Oh, so the kasha is, what difference does it make? If it's a chatos or it's a oila, it's a shlamim, why get into the whole discussion if in any case you're not going to eat it? You're going to burn it. The answer is very simple. You have to know how long to leave it over. If it's a chatos, it can only be eaten for one day and a night, then as long as you have one night, leave it overnight, then you know for sure it's possible. But if you have reason to assume that it's a shlamim, which are eaten for 2 days and a night, then in order to ensure that it's noiser, that it's lina, you have to leave it over 2 days until you are certain that the expiry date expired. Expiry date has reached. Okay, so that's regarding the basar and the azar. Nimtza b'gvulim. What if you found basar outside Yerushalayim? Gvul means throughout the boundaries, throughout the cities of Klal Yisrael. There, we have no reason to think that it's a carbon. Right? In the azara or Yerushalayim, you could assume it's a carbon. But outside Yerushalayim, no karbanis are present. So the halacha is as follows: Eivarim nevelos. If you find them chunk, limbs, you assume that it's a nevela. It's not kosher. It's just meant. It was designated for the dogs. V'chatichos mutaros. If you find them chopped up into small slices, then you know it was prepared for eating purposes, and it's not nevela. It's kosher. Of course, we're speaking that the butchers in that area, at least most of them, who are run by Jews and have kosher meat. So we assume everything's okay. But what about during Yom Tovim when there is an abundance of meat? Even if you find chunk, big pieces, limbs, you assume that it's mutter. The Korban Eidah says there's not enough time to cut them into pieces. They just cook them as is. So even when it's Eivarim, you can go ahead and say that it's mutter and eat it without any hesitation. Okay, says the Gemara, let's go back to the beginning. We found some coins. On Har Bayis. We assume that it's Chulim because we follow the Roiv. And Roiv money throughout the year on Har Bayis would have been Chulim. Really? What about Hegdish money? Shouldn't we assume that the origin of this money is none other than Trumas Halishka? Lo Tzurcha Delay. It shouldn't have said except, meaning, it's just a way of saying it, it would seem that the proper halacha would have been as follows. Har Bayis Kodesh. Then we find something in Har Bayis, it's actually Kodesh. It's coming from the Beis HaMikdash. Rabbi Chia, B'Shem Rabbi Yechon answers like this: no. Chazaka she'ena kohen moitzi min alishka mois. There's a chazaka that the kohen or the gizbar taking money from the lishka for Beis Hamikdash expenditures would only do it in a manner which would prevent any sort of misuse or abuse. Chazaka she'ena kohen moitzi min alishka mois adshu mechalon ala behema. He doesn't take it out until he actually transfers the Kedusha on a behemoth. So he knows that there's a shipment of behemoths coming today, and he needs so much and so much money. So he takes that amount, and he's already mechalit. He transfers the Kedusha on the new arrivals before he even takes the money out. He wants to make sure that it's not dropped, it's not mixed with other money. So as soon as it's taken out from the Beis Hamikdash, as soon as it arrives on Har Bayis, you know for sure it no longer is Kaddish, it's Chulin, and therefore there's no concern with using that one. Continues the Gemara, Basar Shenimtza. Next case spoke about Basar that was found in the Azara. If it's a Varim, it's assumed to be Oilois. If it's Chatichois, we assume it's Chatois. And Mishnah tells us you can't eat it. You have to leave it overnight and then burn it. Now, before we begin the Gemara, there is a machlekes. We actually learned it in Maseches Pesachim. Machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rish Lakish regarding the halacha of Hesach Hadas. The pasuk says, "Mishmeres Trumoisai." You have to keep a good eye on Truma, on Kachem. You have to safeguard it, keep it secure from any tumah. What if a person leaves it unsupervised? He was Masiach Das, diverts his mind, diverts his attention, and didn't keep a watchful eye on the kachim. It's possible. Why is it possible? We have two approaches. This is back on the Lamed Aleph in Pesachim. It's actually Machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rish Lakish. So Rabbi Yehuda says that it's a psul tumah. We're concerned perhaps it came into contact with tumah. Now, if you know, if Eliyahu Navi comes and tells us, well, I know that this thing was not tumah, then it's okay. It's only a suffix tumah. Whereas according to Rish Lakish, the fact that he did not keep a watchful eye on the kachim, that in itself generates a psul. Kachim have to be supervised. There has to be shmira. There's no shmira. It's lacking that positive element to it, and it becomes possible. Now, even if Eliyahu would come and say, well, I know there was no tumah here, it doesn't matter, because it's lacking that ingredient of shmira. Says the Gemara, he says like this. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Hesach Hadas is on account of a chashash tumah. He's siyadas. So in Yerushalmi, instead of Hesach Hadas, it's a siyah. Either the ayin and the ches come from the same place in the person, the throat, or because his siyah means traveled, removed. His das was removed from this item. Ton ibutsura. You can't just burn it. You have to leave it overnight, let it lose its freshness. It's just a way of saying lina. And then you burn it. Why? Just because he was Mesiach Das, that doesn't generate a psul following Rabbi Yehuda. It's a suffix tumah. You can't eat it, but you can't burn it either, unless you know with certainty that it's possible. Leave it overnight and then burn it. Rav Aisha Masnisa Amar came, Rav from our Mishnah. Tu b'tzurasai, v'yetzi l'beis ha'streifa. You find meat in the Azara. It was Hesach Hadas. Nobody was watching it. You cannot burn it now. You have to leave it overnight and then burn it. Apparently, it's because Hesach Hadas is not an inherent psul. It's only a chashash tumah. You can't eat it on the one hand. On the other hand, you have to wait until there's a vadei psul, meaning there's a psulina, and then burn it. Amar Yosef is yours? Is that a correct approach? Is that the right pshat in the Mishnah? No, I disagree. In our Mishnah, there's no hesach hadas whatsoever, because the Azara was a properly supervised area. There's no chashash, there's nothing going on there. Therefore, says Rabbi Yosef, it's unrelated to the concept of hesach hadas. Don't connect the two things. What then is the correct pshat in our Mishnah? You find meat in the Azara. Why do you have to leave it overnight and then burn it? What's going on? There's no hesach hadas. The answer is very pashut. You don't know how old this meat is. Maybe it's already past date. It's past expiry date. It's very nicer. You can't eat it. Maybe it's already past. It's already been expired, spoiled. It's just a way of saying that it's possible, nicer, it's leaner. That's why you have to say, you have to leave it overnight, in which case you know with certainty that it's possible, then you burn it. But it's not because of hesach hadas. Rabbi Lezer wanted to bring a raya. Al should speak hesach hadas. Apparently, hesach hadas is not an inherent source of psul. It's only because of chashash tumah, and that explains the halacha of the Mishnah. You can't just go burn it. You have to leave it overnight to get a vadai psul. It's only a suffix tumah. You can't eat it. You can't burn it. You have to let it get a vadai psul. The Gemara responds, it's unrelated. Al is not speaking about hesach hadas. There is no hesach hadas in the Azara. Rather, the reason why you can't eat it is because perhaps it's already nicer. So on the one hand, you don't eat it, but you can't burn it unless you know with certainty that it's possible. So leave it overnight and then burn it. Nimtze b'gvula. Let's move on to the next halacha. You find some meat lying around outside Yerushalayim. What does the Mishnah say? Eivarim nevelos. If you find them chunk, find limbs, you didn't bother cutting them up because it's an nevela meant for dogs. Chatichos, if they're properly chopped up, mutaros. Says Rabbi Crispa b'shem Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina. Eivar nevelis loiken aleim shel nevela. Here comes a chiddush. Don't think that eivar nevelis means it's a chashash, maybe it's a nevela. Don't eat it, keep away. No. Go further. We establish with vados, with certainty, that a eivar is a nevela. It's a raya. And therefore, if a person should eat it, he gets malchus. Masnisa amrkein. The wording of the Mishnah itself supports this approach. The Mishnah says, Eivarei nevelos v'chatichas mutaris. We have two halachas in the same sentence. Eivarim are presumed to be nevela, and sliced meat are mutter. When we say mutter, it means mutter b'achila. Chatichas mutaris loy mamish. Wouldn't that mean mamish it's mutter? The kavasa. Likewise, Eivarim nevelos loiken aleim shel nevela. Both halachas are absolute, definitive halachas. So just as chatichas mutaris means it's mamash mutter, you can eat it. Eivar nevelos means it's mamash and nevela. It's assumed to be nevela, and if one should eat it, he gets malchus. Continues the Gemara with a related halacha. Rabbi Crispa b'shem Rabbi Yosef Chanina. One more thing here. Im hoyu machroizes mutaris. Although the Mishnah says Eivarim are presumed to be nevela, but if they're machroizes, if they're tied together, bundled together, like laced together, there's a string running through a piece of meat, and that's how they're strung together. That's not something generally done when you're intending on tossing it to the animals. Since they're neatly packaged together, they're mutter because they're assumed to have been packaged for human consumption, and it's not available. Continues the Gemara with a similar concept. This relates to the halacha we just mentioned earlier, that when there's a strong grounds, strong basis for isser, it's not just a suffix, it's actually malchus generated as a result. Says the Gemara, this is a classic case. If we have 9 stores in the city selling nevela meat, non-kosher meat, and you have 1 store selling shchuta meat, kosher meat. Suppose he knows he walked into one, but he was absent-minded at the time. He confused things. He's not sure. Was it the kosher store or the non-kosher store? Choshesh. He has to be concerned that he walked into the nevela store, and what he has is nevela. Now, choshesh just means it's a suffix. It's 50-50. You'll ask, why is it 50-50? There are 9 stores statistically, he bought from the nevela. 9 selling nevela. Let's assume the nevela was the origin. The answer is, here it's different. Here he purchased from the actual store. He went into the establishment itself. That's called kavua. When something is established in its own place, it's regarded as a separate, independent entity from the other ones. Here we can't just follow Rav. One store has nothing to do with the other. With the other. Each one is a separate establishment, established separate entity, independent of the other ones. In his mind, is a simple suffix, 50-50. Was it this, was it that? Here you can't say, well, most likely it was nevela. No. Rav only works when you have a mixture, a taroivis. Well, everybody here will contribute an element, be considered an element within this equation, within this larger equation. Most elements are no good, then we follow the Rav. Most elements are fine, we follow the Rav in that way as well. But here, all the stores are separate, independent entities, and they don't join together. They don't combine to form elements in the same equation. Therefore, it's like 50-50. There's a chance like this, a chance like that. Maybe it was the nevela store I purchased it from. Maybe it was the kosher store. 50-50. He's choshish, he can't eat it. But here, he won't get malchus. However, in the next case, ula nimtzes. What about we have the city, 9 stores selling nevela, 1 shchuta, and you find a piece of meat sitting in the street. And it's unidentified, unattributed. You don't know where it came from. In this case, yeah, we apply Rav. Here, the uncertainty was not generated by his interaction with the Makay Makvis, with the established entity. His suffix was triggered by noticing a piece of meat in the street, which was at this point detached from its source of origin, from its store. So the suffix here doesn't relate to stores, it relates to a piece of meat. What is this piece of meat? Most likely, treif. Because statistically, right, it makes sense. There are more chances it came from the nevela stores. So here we follow Rav, and if he eats it, he gets malchus. Because the Rav in this case establishes the halacha, the status of this piece of meat. We consider it nevela. So that's how it relates to the previous Gemara. We have a case of a suffix, but the bottom line is, we have such strong grounds, solid basis for determining the nevela status of this piece of meat. He gets malchus should he eat it. What about in the reverse situation? Teisha chanuyis moichers basar shchuta. You have a city which has 9 stores selling shchuta meat, kosher meat. Va'achas mecheres basar nevela. And only 1 is selling nevela. So it's going to be the same halacha, just in the reverse. In schalfalei, suppose his stores got mixed up, meaning he walked into one store, but he doesn't know which one he walked into. Choshish. He has to be concerned that perhaps it was the nevela store. You may ask, well, 9 are kosher, only 1 is treif. Why would we have a chashash? Why don't we follow Rav? The answer is the same as before. It's kavua. These stores are established entities, independent one from the other. And his suffix was generated how? By interacting with one of those establishments. We follow the halacha. We learn this from Gzeres HaKasav. Kol kavua kemechza amechza dami. We treat it like a 50-50 equation. So although most stores were shchuta stores, he cannot eat this piece of meat. Ulanimtzes, however, regarding a piece of meat that was discovered in that city, certainly you follow Rav, and we assume it's kosher meat. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, hanimtze biyad nachri. What about a piece of meat that was found in the hands of a goy? We know the goy purchased from one of the stores. Now the question is, how is the suffix generated? By interacting with the establishment, in which case it's a 50-50, and you can't eat it. Or, we say the guy, he has no connection to this whole topic. He's not generating sfeikis, he's not in the parsha. So the suffix perhaps is triggered right now, right when we notice it in his hands. At this point it's unrelated, unconnected to the stores. And we can follow Rav, which is kasha. So which way do we look at it? Hanimtza be'ad nocha kinimtza be'platia. This is what you found down the plaza. And therefore, it's disconnected from the stores. This suffix is not triggered by the establishments, by the stores itself. It has no din kavua. In a case where you have a city where most stores are selling kosher meat, this piece of meat is presumed to be kosher. Continues the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer Bey, the son of Rabbi Chagai, have a masmach Rav Mana. He was leaning on Rav Mana. Chama, he observed lechad armoy. This guy mekateya min susa. He was chopping his horse, maybe it was a dead horse, chopping meat. Umapel gebron. He was sending it out. He was selling it. So this fellow had his own source his own independent source of non-kosher meat. Now we're speaking that aside from this, there was no other non-kosher meat in the city. All the butchers, all the slaughterhouses were operated by Jews. Everything was kosher. The question now is, but we see that this guy discovered some his own personal source of meat, which wasn't kosher. So how do we look at this? Amar lei, Rav Lezer turned to Rav Mana and he asked him like this: Hadahi de Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This halacha of Rabbi Yochanan, that when something is discovered in the hands of a guy, you start your discussion right there. You don't have to go back to where he purchased it from, because the suffix is generated and triggered right now. Does that halacha apply in this case as well? Hadahi de Amar Rabbi Yochanan nimtza b'yad nachri kinimtza b'platya. Does that halacha, if you find in the hands of a guy, it's always found in the plaza, does it apply to this case as well? Hadahi here as well? Amalei Kain, yeah. Amar Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi said, yeah. V'hu v'hein sharo oisai yoytzei makul she'Yisrael. Provided, there's one condition here, that you observe this same guy leaving the makulan, the butcher, the slaughterhouse of the Yisrael. So in the morning you saw him leaving the butcher house of Yisrael. And later on throughout the day you see him holding some meat. Now, you're not sure which meat it is. Was it purchased from the Yisrael, so you know it's kosher? Or perhaps it was from his horse? Well, you follow the roiv, you say, well, most likely the meat in the city is kosher. And we follow the roiv, despite the fact that he himself has a horse that he's trying to get rid of. We follow the majority, the roiv, and since roiv, basar in the city is kosher, and he himself was observed exiting the store of the Yisrael, so you assume everything's okay. And you assume the source of his meat was the Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Chad bar Nash b'Tzipern. There was a fellow in the city of Tzipern. So he went and he tried to purchase kupot meat from a certain butcher who wasn't exactly his best friend. He didn't want to give it to him. He refused to sell him meat. So the potential customer turned to a Roman, to a guy, says, do me a favor, go over to that butcher and get me some meat. And he succeeded, he brought him some meat. So now this snubbed customer went back to the butcher and he says, look, gotcha. You see? Didn't I purchase against your will? Look what I have. I have your meat. So the butcher says to him, you have a slave? He wasn't going to be undone. So he says, didn't I sell him a basar nevela? You thought you outsmarted me. Well, actually, I sold him non-kosher meat. V'lav basar nevela, obviously. Is he trusted? Do we believe him? Rabbi Yirmiyah b'Shem Chanina said like this: Ma sabal fnei Rabbi. This story was presented to Rabbi. V'amar, he said, we can't believe him. Like kula mine, it's not up to him. He doesn't have the power, mesar, to prohibit, to make asur makulin, the slaughterhouses, the butchers, the tzipar of that city. He has no right to do that. Just because he claims that what he sold was nevela. We know that day there was no rumor about a nevela. It seems that they would send out a message whenever there was some sort of mishap in the slaughterhouse. That day we know everything was presumed to be kosher. Just because he was undone by his snubbed customer, we don't, and he claims that he sold him nevela. He has no ne'emanos, and we assume that the meat was kosher and is mutar bachi. It's interesting that throughout the whole sugya, we don't find any mention of the famous halacha of basar shenis ale min ayin. Unsupervised meat may not be eaten. That's the halacha today. But as we're going to see Be'ez Hashem tomorrow, that was the next step. It was a chumrah applied by Rav. But me'ikar hadin, we see clearly from the Mishnah, from the Gemara, we speak about meat found in the street, which is mutter. Well, it depends on the situation, the circumstance, chunks or sliced, roiv, whatever. But we don't say just because it's been unsupervised, it's asa. That's the ikar hadin, the time of the Mishnah, time of the Gemara. But later on, Rav added the new concept of basar and salmon ayin, which is going to see Be'ez Hashem in the upcoming shir. Okay, let's make a quick chazara. We began with the Mishnah making reference to the 13 shefaras. What if you find some money lying on the floor in between the shefaras? You don't know where it came from. We follow the one that's closer, regardless of whether it's an upgrade or a downgrade. Karev prevails. If it's mechza, in which case we have a suffix, then we go lahachmar, we put into the one which is considered to be of a higher kedusha. We had a shaila, how could you take money which is a suffix chatas and use it as an oila? The Gemara says it's a Tanai Bezdin. What about the Isha who needs a chatas? The supplier will throw in another bird to account for that. We had the next Mishnah regarding money found in Yerushalayim. It depends where. We had three categories. On Harabayis, which was not swept on a daily basis. We follow most money supply of the year, which is not Maisa, and therefore, if you find it, it's Chulin. What about Mois Hegdish? Mois says, well, we assume the Gizber would not have taken Mois Hegdish out with him. What about money found in Yerushalayim on the streets? The day you found it, it is presumed to have been dropped that day because it was swept on a daily basis. If you find during the year, Chulin. Beregel, it's Maser. In front of the animal dealers, it's always Maser because most transactions were conducted with Maser Shein money to purchase the Shlomim throughout the year. What about Basar? Depends where you found it. Found the Azora, Ivarim, Oilos. Chatichais, Chatois. Found in Yerushalayim, they're assumed to be Shlomim, but either way you can't eat it. We're concerned about, the Gemara conclusion was, we're concerned about perhaps that it's noisar, it's past the expiry date, and therefore you can't eat it, but you can't burn it yet. You have to leave it overnight until it's vaday noisar and then burn it. What if you found meat out in the land of Eretz Yisrael beyond Yerushalayim? If it's a varim, nevelis, and not only is it just a suffix, the Gemara concludes that it's a vaday, if the person eats it, he gets malchus. Aside when it's on Yom Tov and lots of meat, even the varim are considered to be mutter. Chatichos, you find them properly sliced, you can eat it lechatchil. We discussed a city which has several stores selling nevela meat, 9 in total, and 1 selling shchuta meat, and you have a suffix where you purchase your meat. So in any case, it doesn't matter what's the roiv, what's the meat, whether 9 are treif or 1 are kosher, it's kavua, because the suffix was generated by your interaction with the mokem akviyas, with the established entity, in which case each store is considered a separate entity from the other, doesn't relate to the other, doesn't combine, they don't combine together as joint factors in this equation, and therefore there's no roiv to be applied, and you have a simple suffix, was it this, was it that, was it kosher or not, and therefore you may not eat it. If you find it in the street, in which case the suffix was not triggered by your interaction with the mokem akviyas, rather it was parish, it was taken from mokem akviyas, but now you have something sitting on the floor and you're wondering about its identity. Then you follow the roiv. If roiv in the city is kosher, you're okay. If roiv nevela, you're assuming that it's a nevela. If a person eats it, he gets malchus. What about if a guy is holding it? Then you start the suffix right now. We don't relate to the fact that he purchased from a store because he's not involved in these fakers. The suffix begins right now, and you follow most of the meat supply of the city. We ended the story that the butcher claimed that the meat he supplied was not kosher. The Gemara concluded he has no ne'emanos. Be well and hatzlacha rabba to you.